some of our objectives. We want to maximize performance, safety, well-being, and efficiency of the workforce. We want to do that so that we can promote employee engagement and motivate employees to meet their goals personally as well as the organization's goals. We want to understand and support employees at all levels so that they can in turn provide the highest quality of service to our customers. And as you know, that's one of our core values. We want to develop and maintain effective cross-departmental relationships that foster respect, collaboration, and shared responsibility for the organization's success. And what we found, and we've explored this more and more each year, and especially over the last year, is communication is key. And the more that we can partner with the different department heads and really seek to understand what is it they're needing and what is it they're looking for, then we can find ourselves very resourceful by opening up those communication portals. We also seek to establish and maintain effective, well-rounded compensation philosophy. So as you're aware, we did a compensation study in FY 2022 that was implemented earlier in this fiscal year. And at that time, our target was to be in the 65th percentile of compensation based on the comparisons that were used. We also seek to expand educational and development opportunities as they relate to maintaining fair and equitable practices and procedures. And this is another area that we found ourselves to be a resource for departments whenever they're trying to establish things, and this is a simple one, but let's just say call-in procedures, or maybe they're trying to curtail absenteeism and how to balance, the needs of an employee versus the needs of the operation and what they need to run the operation. That's just an example of times that we can help develop those practices. And then we find ourselves constantly using our sphere of influence to bring about positive change and contribute to an overall healthy and productive workplace. We want employees to know that we're invested in making our workplace better. We offer additional training and development opportunities for them as employees as well as their managers. And we want them to know that that they have resources available to them. So basically, if they have a question about how do they
I'm going to go in just a moment. No, excuse me. No, you have a question, Dr. Walker.
I'll go through it.
Okay.
I have a
Thank
question, if I might.
Okay, we have questions.
Yeah. Just a clarification. You said that our goal is to be at the...
No.
If you'll explain that for me.
So at the time that we did the compensation study, we had a third party come in and
Right.
provide that study or do the study. And so the comparisons they made, so they used some private sector. I don't have an exact list of who they used, and they used public sector primarily within the Panhandle, I think all the way over to Okaloosa County. And on the scale, and it's an overall, so it's not by job, but overall, that our compensation was within the 65th percentile. So as I understood it from the vendor at the time, employers will typically look at like the 50th percentile and benchmark off of that. So they benchmarked our overall compensation structure off of the 65th percentile. So if you lay them all out, that we would be in this higher in the scale in comparison to other and I can't remember the word that they used, but it was basically their points of comparison in the survey, in the compensation survey. I can provide additional information on that.
So, and just if I might follow up, what I'm looking for is, are we competitive? And, and that's what's driving this. I know we've had some problems with mechanics and drivers at different times, but are we competitive with other organizations in this area, in the areas that are important to us, or do we need to address that and become more competitive in our salaries And I think it's probably more salaries than benefits, because we're competing for young people who don't really care about benefits.
Right. And if I can tell you my opinion on that, I think it's relative to where so for instance, if we have an engineer that's looking at going to a consulting firm, our benchmarks are not based on that type of comparison. I mean, the sky's the limit is what we found with different ones that have left our organization, very substantial increases in pay. But whenever you compare and I'm not saying this is the case for all of them across the board, but when you make comparisons to Escambia County, City of Pensacola, Okaloosa County, we're pretty comparable overall. And I believe the benefits are comparable as well.
Okay.
So just understanding this 65th percentile thing, so that basically means, the way I understand it, that if you're at 50%, that means half the people make less than you and half the people make more than you in the same position. So it's basically like a bell curve, kind of. If you're at 65%, then only 35% of the people in that job make more of you. So it's actually a pretty good thing. It's not like we're only paying 65% of 100% of what everybody else gets.
Right.
Is that
Yes.
correct?
Yes, that's correct. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Any other
Thank you.
questions?
Thank you for that explanation.
Yes.
Please continue.
Okay. So to provide an update on where we are with some of our 2023 targeted accomplishments, so this is the year that we're currently in. So for a few of these, I did pull in some information for FY 2022 because we don't have information for FY 2023 yet. So for instance, the first one, so we had a goal to survey, or we have a goal to survey employees and measure employee engagement and satisfaction. So this year's survey is not due to be conducted until the fourth quarter of this year. So what I provided here is the survey results from the 2022 survey, which was from September of last year. And this was the second year, so this information in the slide represents the second year we did the survey. We did have 155 employees who responded, and what was ironic is the top 3 positive responses. So we had about 25 questions that we used like a diverging bar chart to determine which questions asked on a scale of 5, which was strongly disagree to strongly agree, which questions actually prompted the most positive response for employees. And so of the questions asked, the most positive response came in for my coworkers and I have good working relationships. I have the latitude to complete my work without being micromanaged by my supervisor, and I believe that I have the opportunity to communicate in an open manner with my direct supervisor. So very positive responses, and it goes in line with what we read and hear through the exit interviews, is employees usually have stronger relationships with the people they work with, and typically have a good working relationship with their supervisor. The more negative responses came, or the 3 that had the most negative response, was I am compensated fairly relative to my local market. Now, we'll make a note, when this survey was conducted, which was in September of 2022, we had not actually implemented the comp study yet. We had communicated it in different forums, but we had not actually implemented it. People had not seen it in their checks yet, been able to spend it. And so I'm anxious to see in the coming survey how people are feeling, about their compensation now that survey was, or that the compensation study was implemented. The next one was employee morale within my department has improved over the last 12 months. I was actually surprised that was still in the top 3 of negative responses. I thought in the first year we did the survey, which was in FY 2021, I thought that might be driven by COVID because there was just a lot of negative going on in general, but it's still there as one of the top 3 negative. And then the last one was employees are treated with respect at ECUA regardless of level or position. And so what that tells me is that we have opportunity, we have a lot of work to be done, and I'll get into this a little bit later, but through training and education, we believe that's one way to bring awareness of how people want to be treated and give people practical tools and tips on, how to meet people where their needs are, try to. The participation, I think I mentioned, was 155 responses on this particular survey, and the categories were about the same as to where they fell out. The prior survey in 2021, we had 308 responses. So participation in the survey in general, although same kind of layout on the top and the bottom of the scale, was down about 50%.
Can I ask you to pause right there? We have questions. Mr. Brown?
So in looking at this, are you able to flesh out which department I don't want to have an instance of pointing fingers, but is there a particular type of job or department that has the more negative responses? Because I was tooting your horn on yesterday with the IT folks. I remember your presentation. I don't know if it was last year or year before, Ms. Benson, I can't remember. But where you presented the information and what you're talking about today and looking at your group of folks, I see what you were talking about then. Is that across the board in different departments, or can you say that there's one particular department or one job without pointing fingers that requires a little more help? Is it the folks out in the field or the clerks in one of the offices?
So through this particular survey, I can't tell you. We intentionally do not solicit a department or collect IP addresses or anything because we really want to know. Now, there are other indicators through exit interviews, and we're going to be doing some stay interviews that we feel like they're more specific to a department and to, an employee's feedback about a specific department. So I think that we'll find those things out through those other ways, as we have with exit interviews.
And one more question. Why do you think you went down from over 300 to 155? I mean, it seems like your questionnaire is great and it's going to provide a lot of information. So what happened with the numbers?
I don't know specifically. I can tell you we roll this particular survey out in an electronic format. Not all employees use computers every day. That could have had one impact on it. Although we had the same basic population of employees, not the same people sitting in the seats, but basically the same population of employees back then. I would like to think that, and maybe this is not something I should say, but sometimes when people have something negative to get off their chest, then they definitely want to put it out there. And sometimes whenever everything's going good, it's like no news is good news.
Right.
So there's this part of me that thinks, okay, well, things have gotten better within the departments that people, or maybe the communication within the departments have gotten so much better that people don't really feel the need, or maybe that it's important to communicate it through a survey. That's just my opinion. I'm not sure exactly why the participation fell off like it did.
Mr. Chairman, may I respond also?
Oh, absolutely, yes, sir.
I think an important point also mentioned is the prior survey was the first one in 12,
Over a
15
decade.
year, over a decade. So it was the first opportunity. So I think there was a spike because, hey, we have an opportunity to say something. And then the second one came just right on the heels of it a year later. There's also a pretty good component of the questions were the same for the purposes of benchmarking to see what changes year to year. I hope that didn't dissuade some people from participating. Hey, I just answered this question last year, so there's a little risk in doing that. But I think benchmarking is important to see changes and trends. And then we add some new questions as well. So I think that's part of the disparity. I think the first year was a spike, and the second year is probably closer to what we would expect in terms of response when you do an annual regular survey.
Okay, thank
I
you.
think that's a good point too.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
To go back to your your objectives, how do you know if you achieve your objectives during the course of the year?
Well, one way would be to look at voluntary turnover and see if, now we don't have the direct impact on turnover. I mean, we can provide the training and we can provide the tools necessary, but whether they take hold in their practice sometimes lies outside of HR. But I think one way to look at it is employee feedback, and are they seeing positive changes within their own departments?
Or perhaps I didn't ask the question properly. I actually wanted to go back to your previous slide where you were talking about your goals and objectives. And I wanted to know, how do you know if you achieve your objectives?
Because because we see positive movement, we see employees more engaged, and because they participate in the services that we have. I'm not sure I understand your question.
So like with the questionnaire that you do, in the first year you did it, you had 300 people participate. Next year you had 150. What would be the goal for the year fiscal '24? Would it be to see a 20% increase in the number of people who participate? Or would it be to see something like that? If you have an objective and you want to know whether we're meeting our mark, then we measure it, right? And so if you had 300 participate in the first year, it dropped off the second year, we should set a goal for fiscal '24 of having so many people participate, whether that's a 10% increase or a 20% increase or a 50% increase. But that is what I'm asking. And in the objectives, nicely spoken, but I can't see how you will know whether you did good or better than last year with the year ahead, because there's no measurables. So, and that's a case in point where you had 300 the previous year, 150. We should set a goal, a numeric goal, objective of saying we want to receive a 20% increase in the number of people who respond to our survey. And that you can measure and say whether or not they responded, and maybe why or why not did they respond. So just some feedback as it relates to objectives. Okay, thank you.
Mr. Williams?
Yes.
May I just follow up? I think probably, and I hear what you're saying about needing participation, but I think the more important thing is seeing the change in what those responses are. If they're happier with their jobs in the next year or less satisfied, I think those objectives are ultimately what we're going for rather than just the number of respondents. And I think probably what she said about you get a drop off on voluntary because they're feeling pretty good about things, so why do that, all of the choices. But I think seeing an increase in their feeling of productivity or their belief that they have possibility for improvement of their jobs, or those things are more important, I think, to us as an organization than how many respondents we have.
And that was just an example that was right there in front of me. I'm really not so concerned about setting your objectives for you. I'm concerned about being able to measure how we are doing year over year with the objectives you have listed. So that end of the year or term survey was not my point as much as when I look at your objectives. I don't know. I think, and I actually think last year it was similar. And so.
It was similar.
Right. And so I don't know if we did better last year to where we are this year versus what we're going to do from this year to next year, because I don't know what numerically you want to accomplish. Right? That's all I'm saying. Not trying to say it should be more important about that survey. But when you talk about maximizing performance, safety, well-being, and efficiency of workforce by fostering a work environment that promotes employee engagement and motivates employees to achieve success, both personally and for the organization, if we have so many employees doing that now, how do we want to increase that number over the course of the year ahead, is what I'm asking.
I understand what you're saying.
Okay.
We put the measurements in the targeted accomplishments, but we can move them to the objectives next year.
Okay. And we've spurred more questions, so Dr. Walker, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have great respect for Ms. Scruggs and for Mr. Woody and for Ms. Scruggs' staff, management team, but I question whether a survey of employees that gets less than 25%, only about a 25% response is a meaningful survey. The results are meaningful. There's so much opportunity for that 25% to be skewed in some way. For example, if the survey is put out electronically, then most of those whose job is to sit at a desk with a desktop computer in front of them will probably respond to the survey. And most of those who work in the field or drive a garbage truck or whatever, they're not nearly as likely to respond to that survey. So I think it should be incumbent upon management to achieve a much higher return rate in such employee surveys in the future, and to make perhaps great efforts already been made, I don't know, but to make serious effort to ensure that the survey represents all of the employees as much as possible, and that it's not some kind of bias or skew built in due to the manner in which it is presented or the opportunities given to various types of employees to respond.
Thank you, Dr. Walker. Mr. Punko?
My guess is these objectives are very high level, but you have metrics that are not presented as an attachment. For example, your safety goal. I know you all have to have some kind of safety goal, 0 injuries, 1 injury every quarter, whatever. But, so am I correct? And yes, the survey, we used to do those all the time. And by the way, your top 3 and your bottom 3 mirror years of what I saw at Gulf Power. They never seem to change. So, but behind the scenes, you have all kinds of metrics for employee performance and safety and everything else, correct? Maybe next year you just attach all that.
Okay, Mr. Woody?
Yes, Kim and I reviewed this. She produces a wonderful quarterly metrics of, like you mentioned, statistics on everything that we track through the HR department. The presentation that follows has a lot more statistics in it. As she's already mentioned, those numbers are in the targeted accomplishments as opposed to the objectives. Regarding the survey, you'll remember that we did a customer survey that was statistically significant in the way that so we took a scientific approach to make sure that you had a confidence interval in terms of its results. I should say, not we, I take personal responsibility on this particular survey. We did not take that approach on the customer survey, or excuse me, the employee survey, out of concern that we didn't want to leave any impression at all with employees that we were tracking what department it came from. Or, we wanted them to be as honest and provided the best feedback we could get. That was especially a concern for the first survey just last year, because it was the first one that had been done in 12, 15 years. I have questioned, we've talked about the pros and cons of what the cycle ought to be. Maybe every year is too frequent. Maybe it ought to be every other year, every third year, so that we get a better participation rate when we do it. But I did want to be sure and have some benchmark questions that are the same, so we can see trends that change. And some of that is, the top three and the bottom three don't change much. But it does give you some idea of morale issues and those sorts of feedback. So I think it's important to have employee surveys.
Thank you. Please continue.
Thank you.
Oh, I apologize. Ms. Ritz has a question. Ms. Ritz,
I
you're
know
recognized.
waiting and listening is kind of maybe tiring, but I will be very brief. When I was listening to the various comments, I wondered what would happen when you have your lunch and learn. My first thought was, are truck drivers included?
Unfortunately,
I didn't want you to answer that. But I thought, when you do have the lunch and learn, is that a time to get some feedback? Because I don't know how the lunch and learn, what groups come, if it's just a certain area of ECUA that's invited at a time, or if it's everyone. But is that a possibility of getting input when you have that?
so the lunch and learn specifically are probably not going to be conducive for the drivers that are out on routes because they do occur during a normal between 12 and 1. However, there are many, and the survey is only one tool that we use to solicit employee feedback. There are many tools. HR and the HR staff repeatedly go out and visit with employees at retirement luncheons, and we have HR on the road sessions pretty much quarterly where we're there with a list of things we want to talk about, but then to also be available to employees and answer questions. We go down to the Warrington office, and Stephanie goes down there at least once a quarter, maybe once a month some quarters, and makes herself available to employees. I go to sanitation and sit in the break room, myself, getting employees as they come in. I come in on a Thursday so that employees have access to us and can talk and ask questions. Most of the time it's benefits related or policy related, but we are out in the field to get that feedback direct, realizing that not everyone is going to provide the feedback through a survey. So I hope I answered your question about the lunch and learn specifically.
I just wondered, how informal it could be so that perhaps some concerns will come up. Because if they think they're going to be judged, then that's going to put a crimp.
I agree.
You want to respond?
Gee.
I think that was a statement.
Okay, let's just continue, please.
Okay. Okay, this is the, so one of the targeted accomplishments we have for the current year is to do exit interviews with employees and include that feedback on a quarterly basis, but then also to share that feedback with department heads. And so this slide I've just shared, this is the 2022 exit interview feedback. We don't have a lot for 2023 to report on. But this is 2022, so there were 85 voluntary separations, including 9 retirements, and that's the group of employees that we contact for exit interview feedback. We do those in a conversational style where one of the HR staff members contacts the employees and sets up an appointment with them and, does that in a verbal manner. We had 24 employees who completed an interview with HR. And the top reason that they provided for leaving out of these 24 was money. Second, actually tied with work circumstances and environment, is manager relationship, and that could be a manager or supervisor. The fourth reason would be just another opportunity or a career change just under that, personal reasons, and then lastly, retirement. Just in comparison, in 2021, we also conducted exit interviews. We had 87 voluntary separations, which included 21 retirements, and we had 33 interviews conducted. And in 2021, the primary reason people left were due to personal reasons, kind of what I was referring to earlier. The next highest reason was manager relationships, and then after that, work circumstances and environment. And some of those work circumstances did include scheduling issues. And then the next reason is money, and lastly, retirement. So in recent surveys, the money has taken the lead.
Okay.
So another one of our goals is to formally recognize employees, and our goal for the current year is to increase that by 20 to 25%. One way that we found to recognize employees, besides passing the information along to Mr. Woody so that he can provide accolades to the employee and give recognition, is to include different achievements. So if it's like an employee obtaining their degree or a special certification or getting a customer accolade, we've included those in the monthly for-year benefit newsletter to employees.
Okay.
Okay. To date, we've increased the employee recognition by 12%. We also had a goal to increase participation in the annual biometric screening in flu shot clinics, to increase that by 3 to 5%. That was a very conservative goal coming out of COVID and just not knowing how people would adapt to being able to meet in person again. We actually increased by over 23% this past year, which is huge. We really care about the well-being of our employees. And so the neat thing that comes out of that biometric screening process is we receive a report back, and there's nothing individualized or detailed about a person's medical conditions or health, but we do receive information on what are risk factors for our specific employee population. And this year, our top risk factors were BMI, weight-related, blood pressure, blood sugar, and cholesterol. And so what we're able to do is partner with Florida League of Cities, who's our insurance provider, to come up with different educational opportunities and things that we can use to educate employees about, how to prevent some of these things, but then also how to mitigate some of their risk involved. To date, in the current plan year, we've had 278 employees and covered spouses who have taken their health risk assessment. And we've had 61 employees, so 61 of those 278, who have actually received the highest tier. And you may be familiar with this, but Tier 1, they get a $25 incentive for doing their biometric screening and doing their online assessment. And then there's a series of other things that they can do, so health coaching being one. We've had several health and wellness challenges, like a STEPS challenge where we log our steps, and just really to get wellness in the forefront of people's minds. Making healthier, better decisions for themselves. So we've had 61 people who have actually reached that Tier 2 and gotten their $250 incentive. And that's through the insurance. So we're on track to meet our goals with that. So our goal for this year is 50% of the eligible employees and spouses to complete their health risk assessment. Right now we're at 41%, so we're almost there. And then as far as the Tier 2 goes, so the person or the individuals that, do the whole shebang, the goal is to hit 25%. Right now, we're at 9%. And our experience has been that we usually have employees towards the end of the plan year, they're rushed to finish their assessments and get their points. So we fully expect to meet both of those goals.
Okay.
Dr. Walker?
Mr. Chairman, if I remember correctly, in years past, we have received some recognition from the Florida League of Cities for some of these employee well-being programs. Could you briefly mention those two, what we've done in that regard?
Yes. So that is through the Florida League of Cities, it's a health and wellness assessment. I'm looking back here at Stephanie because she is our wellness champion. And so there's different points, so about 12 factors that the Florida League of Cities establishes for their entities to set out to accomplish. And it ranges from providing educational tools and awareness to employees, to having employees actually participate in the biometric screening process. So there's a series of things that we have to accomplish, and by accomplishing those, then we submit an application. Stephanie actually does that for our organization, and then they evaluate. The Florida League of Cities evaluates and then makes those awards. And we are on our 7th year of receiving that award, and we fully expect to receive it this year. So just to reiterate what Stephanie just mentioned, this year, the Florida League of Cities has enhanced their program that by meeting the participation in the Hometown Health Wellness Program, they've attached a monetary incentive to it, which is $25,000. So the reference that I had to the 50% and the 25% for the Tier 1 and Tier 2, by meeting those, that puts us in line to potentially receive that award.
Mr. Chairman, it seems to me that my one opinion is that just as those financial award, recognition awards are on the wall over there, there should be a wall for this kind of award also. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And you said this is year number 7 in which you received it?
Yes, sir.
Do you all have a wall of awards in HR anywhere?
We have a top of our string of file cabinets. We have all of our awards standing in the HR office.
On top of the file cabinets?
But, I mean, you can see them. It's like eye level, when you walk in, it's right there.
Okay,
But if y'all want to designate us a wall, we would be more than thankful for it.
okay. We will proceed, and Mr. Woody has a pen and paper. Okay, we have more comments.
Yep.
Ms. Benson?
Just one comment. There was a time, and I believe at ECUA this was the case, but in government overall, employees started when they finished high school or college, and they spent their career, and you had very little turnover. And it's clear that is no longer the case. You are competing vigorously with the private sector, with other governments, and all of these. And I'm impressed with the creativity that you're using to measure these things, to be able to retain people and to attract people. It's an interesting challenge, but clearly you're on top of your game, and I appreciate all that you're doing because, we need these employees, we need top employees. And the other thing is, when I see all of these people leaving and money suddenly being the number one thing, we'd better be prepared in our budget to look at this and address this and give you the tools for competing.
Thank you. Mr. Brown, you recognized.
Not to open up a can of worms, but with respect to what you said to us last year and this year, is there a mental health component in your question? I don't see anything. I just heard someone say yes. Because when I was looking at it, the number 3, the environment, what's going on, who's angry, who's upset. Mm-hmm. So this young lady did say yes, and I think that if we had a better idea of who's angry and who's happy, and try and figure out how we marry those two up, that would probably be a big portion of the losses that you're seeing as well.
Yes.
I don't know how you would evaluate that. How you feeling? I'm good today.
Yeah. I actually have some information about the mental health on the very next slide that
Fantastic.
actually Stephanie provided to me.
on at NAMI, NAMI. HR Florida Wellness Ambassador last month. Our staff did the first aid mental health training in February, and so we've recognized that that is huge, and so we've intentionally devoted our efforts to making sure that those things are addressed. And so I think with Kim, I'm thinking, sitting here and I'm saying, a lot of the challenges that HR has is that a lot of things we don't have direct control. We have more or less influence.
Right.
And so in the work that we do, we try to influence the impacts of the outcome. And so measuring that sometimes becomes difficult because we don't have the direct control over what the outcome is going to be. And so I think every year we mull over setting the goals and objectives, knowing that we don't have control of that outcome, just influence. And so to translate that into the outcome is difficult in putting a number on it. So.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Please continue.
Okay, so in this next slide, thank you, Stephanie, for covering all that. Just perfect, on cue, perfect. No, I'm kidding. So we had a goal to increase the health and well-being, financial and retirement planning, and know your benefits, educational workshops. And again, this is where we're, looking more at what is the employee need, sir? Sorry about that. Okay. And so this is just a recap of where we're at in the current year. And we do fully expect to reach that increase in that participation by 4 to 5%. But so far this year, we have had 28 employees that have completed on-site health coaching. So as a matter of fact, today, we had a counselor over in the conference room who was visiting with employees by appointment. And so today, not counting the ones we had today, we had 28 employees meet with a health coach. We've had 25 employees who have taken advantage of the Healthy Choices reimbursement program. So that's not the one I was speaking of earlier through the Hometown Health program with Florida League of Cities, but this is the program that's actually sponsored by ECUA. We've had 87 employees attend at least one of 6 health and financial well-being educational sessions, and many of those were the ones that Stephanie mentioned through NAMI and CDAC. And then we've had 40 employees, or we currently have 40 employees who are actively participating in the tobacco cessation program through ECUA. And then we have 248 employees and retirees who attended at least one of the 9 Know Your Benefits sessions that we offered during open enrollment. And again, we take those seriously because that's when employees can really understand the value of the benefits that they have, and then how to best utilize those, which puts money back in their pocket potentially, or keeps money in their pocket, not puts it back. So as you can see, wellness is at the heart of what we do, and it directly connects to an employee's job satisfaction, their morale, their performance. They perform better whenever they're well mentally as well as physically. And so, any questions?
I had a quick question. Quick question would be, how many of your employees have been briefed on retirement benefits?
Do you have a number?
I have the number off the top of my head, but we do talk about it. New hire orientation, which is every other Monday. New hires are getting that information coming straight in the door. Then we also have sessions that we put on, like they'll call people that are getting close to retirement. There's information through the Florida League of Cities, they have like a university now that does the financial wellness, and so they're able to assess things online, webinars. We partner with the Florida Retirement System also. For every employee that has questions about retirement, when they come in or make an appointment to come in, we contact FRS so that they're well informed of what they need to be thinking about, the decisions that they need to be making, and then the timelines that they need to be making those decisions before that time comes. And so we're putting information out as part, again, of the wellness program. Financial wellness is a part of that package. And so, again, as we pay attention to the indicators, we know what questions people are asking, and then we intentionally go about putting things in place, resources in place, to be able to assist with those things. So I hope that answers the question.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Benson?
Couple of quick questions. Several years ago, healthcare was eating up our whole budget. We were really in a crisis with that. And we seem to have gotten that under control with the steps we've taken, which is great. But I remember one of the recommendations when we were out of control was that to keep claims down, to have a resident nurse on site. Did we ever implement that, and do you see the need to do it?
We did
Okay. Second question. There was a mention of mental health care. How are our mental health benefits through our insurance, our employee insurance?
So mental health is covered under our insurance, and it's covered so many sessions, and I believe it's 20. Yeah, it's 20.
Oh, it's pretty good. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Continue, please.
Okay, the next. Okay, so one of the ways that we have found to impact the outcomes is through training. So this year, some of our targeted accomplishments centered on providing leadership training. So we rolled out leadership training in January of 2023. So we have about 100+ individuals, which includes, it can be someone that's currently in a leadership role or supervisory position, or it can be someone that's up and coming, or that fills in on an interim basis for a supervisor. So that group of 100+, they started out with Respectful Workplace and Leadership 101. And then the way we've set it up to make it more conducive for scheduling is we run 3 months, so a quarter's worth of the same session. And we typically, like January, we may run it on Tuesday, and then on February, we'll run it a Wednesday, and then, the next month, maybe a day on Thursday. And then following that the second quarter, then we came in with the Emotional Intelligent Leader, which was phenomenal training, by the way, and effective communication. So in all of our sessions, so there's about 18 months worth of training. It's a series that we're putting on. All of them focus on ECWA's core values. So we draw that in and try to tie things back to, as a leader, why would you want to conduct yourself in this way, or why would you want to have this type of conversation with an employee, or what's the right way to go about communicating, promoting transparency and things of that nature, trust and respect, so that in the end, we can retain employees and have happy employees. Maybe not so much happy, but satisfied employees.
Satisfied is a better word.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. And then just as a side note, all new employees attend the harassment prevention and respectful workplace training on their first day of employment with ECOA. So that does kind of set the tone of what ECOA expects of them, as well as what they can expect of ECOA and their leadership. The risk management staff, so another one of our targeted accomplishments was continuing to identify root cause factors related to workplace incidents and accidents. And just a couple of examples here, So we provide safety training to address some of the root causes of accidents to mitigate future injuries. And then another example, Mark Lundquist in our safety department actually came across a tool or learned of a tool that will aid in lifting manhole lids. And so he got with regional services as well as the water quality lab to discuss this, and I'm not sure if it's actually been implemented yet or not. But the discussion is going on, and then also right now we're looking at how can we better lift lime bags. So we actually have 2 truck drivers out with injuries related to lifting. And so, that also impacts our workforce and the available workforce that we have. We're currently considering a slowdown to get around sanitation vehicle decal. It's actually an initiative put out by SWANA, and you can purchase these logos, decals that go on the back of a truck that helps with left-hand turns. So we have quite a few of those. We actually had one today where, our driver's stopping to actually turn left and the person behind them is mistaking them for stopping to pick up a can or something of that nature. And so those are just some examples of how we partner with the departments to try to mitigate some of the accidents. And then this last one, which is the FY 2023, last 2023 targeted accomplishment, has to do with the return to work program. So we actually modified this. So when we went into the year, what we thought was going to be our goal was to go to every department and try to identify at least 2 modified duty positions or jobs. And what we found is some departments don't even need modified duty because it's sedentary work or something of that nature. And then sometimes, even if we establish a modified duty position and identify that, that doesn't mean it's going to fit the person's needs once an injury occurs. And so we backed up and decided that we would take it on a case by case. So when an issue comes up, Chris does a great job of that, of getting with the department to find out, okay, this is what the employee can do, can you put them back to work? And at the end of the day, if we can bring someone back to work, gets them back to work sooner and reduces our workers' comp cost. And so that's the goal with that one. Then to run through the 2024 targeted accomplishments, there are several of these that are the same, but I did want to highlight some of the ones that are unique to this coming year. So the last bullet point on this slide, we want to begin using ECWA's Facebook and LinkedIn social media platforms on a weekly basis to engage the local community and promote ECWA's career opportunities to try to reach a broader audience. And so, that's one way that we want to put people into the pipeline to increase the number of applications coming in. The 2 on this slide, the top 2, so we want to develop and implement strategies to diversify where applicants are sourced to increase the representation of underrepresented groups throughout the organization and in supervisory positions. And so this is one of the things, and actually, Mr. Williams, you had talked about this in a prior meeting about let's figure out where are, the right places to be recruiting so that we can fill our pipeline with diverse applicants and then increase that underrepresentation in our, increase that in our workforce. And then we want to maintain a 90% or better positions filled. So we've gone through about a year and a half where we've carried just a lot of vacancies. And so we wanted to start measuring that to really make sure that we're staying above a certain percent. I think we can actually do better than 90%, but for the first year, we'll start there and see how we benchmark against that. That next bullet point, that is the specific list of trainings that will be provided in the FY 2024 fiscal year through the leadership training program or the series that I mentioned earlier. And then this, just a continuation of identifying the root causes and addressing those specifically with the department, as I mentioned on a previous slide, that we're doing in the current year. And then to also bring or promote a safety culture. So you may remember, I think it was about a year and a half, time escapes me, ago, that we were awarded a safety it was a safety program incentive through the Florida League of Cities. And so our goal is to kind of resurrect that and then maybe even move to a tier 2 on that particular program. So we're going to be focused specifically on safety culture in FY 2024. And then lastly, the budget summary. So this is just a comparison of and I believe you have a more detailed list that came out in your agenda packet, but this is just an overview. So personal services, I think Justin spoke to that. That's the built-in cost of salaries and retirement, that sort of thing. And then under support services, we do have a $95,000 increase, and that is due primarily to an anticipated, we don't have our renewal yet, but we're anticipating a 40% increase in our property insurance premiums. And that's not directly related to any particular loss. That's pretty much an industry, I don't know if you all have seen it, but in my homeowner's insurance, I've seen it. So we've been told, just given a heads up, to expect a 40% increase in property insurance. And then the other increase is in the materials and supplies, just over $7,000, and that's due to increases in some of our third-party software applications. So NeoGov, which is what we use for our recruiting software, and our performance management software, and our learning management system, there are some increases with that, as well as recordables, which we use for our risk management, claims management. So overall, it's a 4.44% increase in HR's budget. And that is the end of my presentation.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions? Okay.
Just a comment, it's, statistically, the first presenter at these budget meetings gets far more discussion, questions, and scrutiny than the following departments. So next year, maybe we can let someone else be the leadoff hitter and let HR,
Next
be
year.
on deck.
I want to be so far at the end, I'm off the agenda. Thank you so much.
Thank you. We are all aware of the time consumed, so anyone needs a break? Okay.
Yeah,
You had a question, Mr. Ross?
not really a question. It was, each year, your presentation provides a lot more information. I'm one of the nerds who tries to go and read everything. And I wanted to ask you, personally, do you feel like you've made any progress? We were talking about some of the disparities or perceived disparities in the workforce here with respect to minorities, ethnic groups, and females, women. Do you feel like you've made progress without giving any specifics? You had some great numbers the last time, but do you feel like you've made some accomplishments or some headway in that area? I mean, I look at your group and I like what I see. So overall, for the entity itself,
Yes.
have we been getting better at that?
Yes, I do feel like we're making progress. And I base that on some numbers that I've run, so I see it in the numbers. But then I also feel it through conversations with employees, and I see, or I talk to employees who are putting in for promotions and seeing themselves as the next layer of supervision. And there's a lot of diversity in that group. And so I do feel.
That's fantastic. Whenever I have questions, I know you or someone on your staff is going to have a good answer. And cannot say how much we appreciate you for that.
Thank you.
But where are the men?
Oh, they're both off. They're both on, yeah. No, Doug is attending a conference in South Florida related to risk management, and then Mark's off. Yeah.
Really, colleges, that's happening. The number of college students, the women are increasing and the men are not. And I'm seeing in my daughter's generation, we're between people, more and more women are the breadwinners in the family, and statistically, this is happening. It's very different from my generation. Yeah.
You need a breakdown. Okay, we're going to take a 5-minute recess just to regroup and get ready for our next presenter. So we're going to take a break until 4:50.
Someone guard the door so that next presenter doesn't start an escape.
Next presenter gets 5 minutes to present.
Yeah. and proceed where we left off. And I see why HRLX first. As soon as you're done, huh? Okay, very well. So our next presenter will be, department will be customer service.
Okay, you can probably hear me a little better. First of all, I want to introduce the customer service supervisory staff, because without this staff, we would not have made any of the accomplishments that we have made the past year. My far left is Mary Stanberry. She's our Special Projects Training Coordinator. John Gaines, Customer Service Supervisor. Tiffany Nixon, she is my confidential assistant and many, many more things. Jamie Rogers is the Customer Service Manager. And Wynette Villines, she's a Customer Service Supervisor. Okay. I promised that I would bring some graphs this time, but what I didn't want to do is go into a lot of the 2023 because I don't have all my numbers. We still have about 4.5 months, and those months are very busy months. I can project, but I can assure you guys we're on target. And I think when you take a look, when I get more into the budget, I added a 3-year span because I wanted to see you guys to see the pendulum switch of what customers are doing far as the phone compared to emails, compared to faxes, compared to mobile. So I just wanted to tell you guys, with my budget, and you guys have a copy of it, I have no increases that I've added to the budget. The increases, and Justin, as Kim said, explained that with the state pension and Social Security, have no control of that. But I've added no increases. Budget is the same, had a couple of decreases, probably about $1,800, but we're on target. We believe in being good stewards of the money that is afforded us and making sure we spend it in customer service to the best of our abilities for the ratepayers. So moving forward, the 4 areas of customer service, our goal together is to provide customers with service that exceeds their expectations. Our goals is to assist customers in a friendly and professional manner by telephone, email, fax, in person, or mobile. We want to show our customers that we care by actively listening to their inquiries and responding to their requests in an efficient and timely manner. Our objectives are to maintain a courteous and professional atmosphere throughout the department, provide continual training to our staff, fairly apply ECUA's resolutions, policies, procedures to our valued customers, to maintain constantly high levels of productivity, to assure adequate staffing levels to minimize wait times for our valued customers. So for 2023, I'm going to talk about some of our targeted accomplishments that we hope to accomplish by the end of September, by September the 30th. And we're on track to do that from looking at a lot of the stats far as in the call center, the emails, cutting unpaid, delinquent notices, bankruptcies, all of that is on target. My main goal is for 2023, I want to focus on lowering some of the abandoned calls. Now, we're at a very good rate. We're answering about 98% of our calls. Most companies in contact centers are not at 98%. We kind of went up a little bit. We went to 1.9%, and that's about 30,000 calls that we need to answer to reach that goal. And so I'm going to move forward with this PowerPoint because what I want to do is show you guys some of what's been happening in customer service. And I've given you guys and introduce you to staff, but I wanted you also to see our organizational chart. Each of these supervisors, we have 46 employees in customer service. I've tried to keep the span of control to the point where employees can receive coaching, guidance, and supervision and get it quickly. And so we have 3 supervisors and a manager where the 46 employees are divided evenly. We wanted everything to be evenly, whereas if an employee need their supervisor, that supervisor will set a schedule, able to get off of the emails, out of the phone loop to handle that situation right then and right there. Focus, you're right now to our call statistics. This is 2022, so I want to focus kind of on 2022 because last year, same time, I was only able to give you some of the statistics. So if you take a look at 2022 calls received, meaning calls that came into the call distribution center, we have that where customers are able to select 7 queues to go to. For example, it may be a billing queue or a sanitation queue. So we received 314,094 calls. If you take a look at 2021, it was 344,000 calls that we received. And so I have it that calls are down about 9%, which is 30,000 compared to 2021. And this is due to the increase in emails and KUBRA payments. And you might say, well, why KUBRA payments? For customer service, with the KUBRA payments, when it's the weekend or any time after 7 o'clock p.m., if a payment is made, several of my staff members get here at 7 o'clock and they go through the KUBRA file, Easy Pay file, and they look at each account of a customer, and they have to make sure that account is not on the cutoff list. So if it's on the cutoff list, they go and extend the account so it won't get cut off that day. And that's 30-something thousand of those that we touch this year. And if you take a look at the line graph, our emails compared to 2021 went up 151%. It tells you that customers are using the technology that we put out there for them to use. It's a lot quicker. They can get information to and fro to us a lot quicker. So 2021, it was 71,000 emails. 2022, we got 107,461 emails. So what did we have to do internally? Had to make sure that we had the staff to cover that. We had to take people off the phone and add more people to the emails and bring an additional person.
Would you repeat those numbers again?
Yes, sir. Emails for 2021 was 71,101. 2022, 107,461. Okay, so then, like I was speaking about the KUBRA payments, Easy Pay, in 2021, we looked at 71,581 accounts to make sure they wouldn't get cut off. In 2022, it jumped up to 85,831 accounts. That was a 119% increase. So we did some adjusting with our coverage from the phone to make sure we had the proper coverage in these areas. Our walk-in customers, we saw another big shift. Yes, sir.
Thank you. We have a question from the desk.
Sure.
Rico?
I got a question on the email. When we go to customers calling back in July 1st on bulk pickup, and I've already had this question in my neighborhood, are you going to have email or is it strictly calling? They want to know, are we going to be able to get somebody 2 days before? I always tell them yes, because I always get somebody.
Yes.
But so anyway, how's that going to affect?
They can call us through the customer service line, or they can send an email to customer service at ecua.fl.gov.
But is it going to increase your volume significantly?
That will be a new contact. So if at first they called through the phone,
Right.
and we put the order in, because basically what customer service, we just a conduit to get it to the next department to get it done. So they call us, our garbage was missed. Okay, they go ahead, they put in a missed pickup, the representative will, and a lot of times, if customers have been missed more than once, I get the email along with the supervisory staff, and therefore, I send the email to the manager personally, or I will call the manager and say, hey, this customer have been missed several times. So if by chance they decided not to call in and they used our email option, that will be a new contact.
Yeah, I guess my point is, July 1st, bulk pickup, people are going to have to call in now,
Yes.
whereas right now the trucks are just rolling around. So I see it increasing your phone business.
Yes, and then it's, they'll be calling in, right now, we have it for the paid pickup. We used to do, or let me go back, I would say we had at one point where customers had to call in for the bulk pickup, and it went very smoothly. If we have to make the adjustments, I personally feel we have the staff that will be able to handle it. And just because we wear the titles of director, supervisor, manager, it don't exempt us from getting on the phone.
Thanks.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, can I
Yes, sir.
add some comments?
Okay.
I was going to touch on this statistic when we talk about sanitation budget tomorrow, but while we're on it, it would be timely. Right now, we pick up a tremendous amount of bulk that frankly can and should be in the can as opposed to being picked up at the curb. So we're cautiously optimistic that we'll see about a 10% reduction of folks who choose to do that rather than make a phone call.
Yeah.
They'll try to put it in the can. So taking that into consideration, just a sample, 2 weeks ago, I had staff give me a numerical count of all the bulk pickup they do at the curb throughout the different days of the week in the different routes. And right now, or at least at that particular time, there were 2,862, or about 715 per day. That's reduced by about 10%. That's about 643 in that range across the time. So they will be busy, but we've done it before, and it was a much easier operation overall to do it by work tickets.
Thank you.
Okay. So moving on to this graph of our walk-in customers, it increased 153%. So if you look at 2020, we're still post-COVID, 7,600 customers. 2021, 11,507. 2022, 17,663 walk-in customers. And I can tell you a lot of this, I won't say all of them, but a lot of them is due to development. We've been setting up a lot of new subdivisions, homes being built in the city, apartment complexes, and that attributes to that number as well.
Mr. Williams?
Oh, excuse me. Yes, Mr. Brown?
So knowing that we have this increase, you can almost drive through any neighborhood and see that, especially when you get out there by Cracker Barrel out there on Pine Forest Road. Are you going to be increasing your staff, or do you think there might become a need? Because you're talking of thousands in numbers of increases.
Yes, we just put another person up front,
Okay,
so we're ready.
thank you.
Sure.
Okay, please continue.
Okay, so totally adding phones, emails, in-person, Kubra, or Easy Pay, mobile and fax. For 2022, we have had contact with any of those options, a total of 502,022 customers, over 500,000 customers. In comparison to 2021, was 485,365 customers. So we can see that business has increased, and we're making the changes where we need to make them. That basically covers what we've done for 2022 and our accomplishments for 2022, but I also wanted to talk about what we do internally to keep morale up. I always challenge the employees with my motto is to make yesterday better than it was, make today better than it was yesterday. And I tell them that all the time in our meetings. We can't change what happened yesterday. We can only change today. And let's learn from our mistakes. In my department, I champion make mistakes. That's the only way you're going to learn. And we accept the mistakes, but it's when the mistake continues and continues and continues, we know that we have a problem. So we don't want to put that pressure on our employees. We want to create an environment that they are consistently learning, but that they are being successful as well. And saying that, we like to recognize their birthdays. It's very important. We go through and I'll walk through every morning, the supervisory staff. I ask the employees, how are you? How's your family? How's your son? I think it's very important for us to do that because these employees take stock, I know in my department, in what they do, and I want them to know that we take stock in them when they're away from their home, and we want to make sure that they're okay. You talked about mental health and health issues. Just last week, I had 7 COVID cases 2 weeks ago. So addressing all of that stuff, all of that with employees and making sure that they feel safe. I can tell you this team right here, they do an outstanding job. Holidays, we're going to have some type of breakfast, lunch to recognize the holidays that come up. We have National Customer Service Week in October, the first week of October. My staff, each of us, we give our own money. And I can tell you, it's probably end up on about $1,700, $1,800 that we put together. So to show our employees, this is how we feel about you. That week we will serve breakfast, hamburgers, pizza, lasagna, and then we give out plaques to recognize the employees, those that are really excelling and performing high. So we have 3 plaques that we give out for the top callers, our cut and unpaid water service techs. And I know that it's not a good time to bring up that we're cutting people water off, but if we did not do that, ECUA could not operate. We have got to get people on track. So instead of just customers getting cut off, we refer them to the agencies. Go to Community Action, go to Catholic Social Services, go to the Help for the Elderly. Try to get your bill caught up, and then we'll work from there. We also offer, look, we can set all this up on a promissory note. You make a payment. It will lower the amount you have to pay, but it'll get you back on track. So there are alternatives. Then looking at our finals, if it wasn't for these supervisors directing and stepping in with the employees, what a final is when an account shows up and there's a balance on it and we haven't gotten the payment. So they research, they go to the clerk of the courts, the tax collector's office, trying to find who owns this property. Is it in an owner name? Did they create this debt? And so what we do at that point, we have to file a lien on the property. Because a lot of these properties are selling so quick that if it's a list pendens on it, we have no way of collecting ECUA's debt. So in saying that, part of our debt ratio being low is that they work very diligently, making sure that they make the proper contacts to get that money collected that's owed us. Going back, we just had a celebration. All of the guys in the department, we recognize all of the mothers, aunts, godmothers, anyone that step in place for a child as a mother. And we put our money together and we gave them a wonderful shrimp Gouda grits breakfast. So those are some of the things that we do to try to boost morale. We sit, sometime I tell the employees when they come in and say, Mr. Brown, can I speak with you? I said, well, my shingles are up. I got them up, come on in. You feel sometimes more like a counselor, but I would rather be a counselor at that point than see something happen to an employee. So that's basically the state of customer service. I think it's sound and strong, and I think our future is bright.
Question. Ms. Spencer?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Do you still have remote employees?
Yes.
And that's working?
Yes, it is. We had to bring some of the remote employees back to move and to walk-ins and help with emails. Some of the employees that are at home may have some type of health issue right now, but what we're seeing with the increase of walk-ins and paperwork, we need more people in the office.
Okay. Just one other comment. So I've been on this board for a very long time, and periodically I get a complaint about customer service, they were rude to me or whatever, and I always say, well, we record these calls, so we will review it. And then a lot of times it changes a little bit once they know that their part of it's going to be heard.
Right.
But I'm not getting those complaints anymore. And as a matter of fact, when I call, and I from time to time call customer service, those people are so nice and so professional, and every time it makes me proud to be associated with this organization, because I know it's a tough job.
Yes.
But boy, do they handle themselves well, and I applaud you and the supervisors and everyone else for the kind of training that it takes to have that professionalism and that continued morale. So kudos to you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Brown, didn't you have?
Basically the same thing that Ms. Benson was saying. We've been looking at your numbers, and we know that there's improvements across the board. So I don't have any questions other than, can I come out on that first week in October? Somebody said lasagna, so I'd like to.
You're more than what interview. You're welcome to
get a
come.
plate if I can.
Most of that, I'll remind you.
Okay.
I'll be looking for it.
All right.
Okay. Mr. Stevens?
Yeah, thank you. And Gabe, I just have a comment as well, my friend. You know, with that voice and enthusiasm, you need to be a game show host.
Yeah, really. Something like
but we don't want to lose you here.
Yeah, don't.
at ECU. I know, no, I'm just saying. But like I said, you know, to Miss Benson's comment, I'm getting a few of those as well. So that's a testimony to yourself and the department. When I do get the rare occasional one, and I send it to Mr. Woody and then CCU, and, you know, you guys are just quick to respond, you know, very quick response. So that makes us all look good up here. So, like I said, I appreciate it. Appreciate your department. And they say one is too small a number for greatness. So you got a great team. That's a testimony to your leadership. So thank you so much.
Is that why you wore the suit today?
I thought I should, just so.
Mr. Perkins has a question for you.
Yeah, a couple observations too, and like Mr. Stevens said, with that suit and everything, he'd be great on America's Funniest Home Videos, better than on Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, you know. But he looks sharp. But I too have noticed, like Miss Benson, that, and I don't know exactly why, but for about the past 6 weeks, I have had hardly any calls regarding customer service or sanitation or anything, and I don't know exactly why, but I like it. And it may be due to our vacancy rates coming up. What's the vacancy rate like now?
For us,
Is
it's
it improving?
We have one vacant position,
Well, that's not bad.
and
That's
we probably will be filling that in about 2 weeks.
Well, that's probably a big part of why.
Now, we did something to help with the communication between sanitation and customer service. We moved a customer service specialist out there. So when we get escalated calls, the supervisors contact that specialist will immediately call the route supervisor with the issue, so we can get it resolved quicker.
How long ago did y'all do that?
It's been about 2 weeks now.
Yeah, that might be a part of it, because I noticed the decline, and I haven't called Mr. Woody nearly as, or texted him nearly as much as I usually do, so something's working.
That's music to my ears.
Now, I have a question, really two. But how are you able to not have an increase in your budget requests?
The biggest increase for most of the departments would be infrastructure and maintenance. I don't have a lot of that. Far as my supplies and all, like I said, I comb through that budget. My confidential assistant and I, when things are being ordered, we comb through it, do we really need this? So we get what we need and we cut out the waste. Like I said, the only thing increase in the budget is salary-wise. Everything else, I don't see it going up. Now, we had some increases in some of the areas a couple of years ago, which we have seen some surplus, and that's why you see a cut in some of them. But I think we will be okay.
Okay, thank you. Lastly, the slide I see on display now says you had 103% increase
Yes,
from 2021 to 2022?
yes.
And are the numbers, the barcodes representing that?
Yes,
Increase?
if you look at 2021, it was 485,365. 2022, it's 502,022. So look like about 16,000 more contacts.
Okay. Again, I echo all the comments from everyone else. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, everybody, have a good night.
Oh, wait, we have one more question, or at least two more questions. Dr. Walker and then Mr. Woody.
Mr. Brown,
Yes, sir.
good afternoon. Good to see you again.
You too.
I'm glad New Orleans didn't tempt you away from us. They probably couldn't understand how you talk, though, since they speak so differently over there. I'm glad to hear these reports about the change of calls and the small number of bad calls from customers complaining about customer service. That's great to hear. I too used to get them, and they'd call, somebody would call and complain, and I just let them talk, and eventually about half of them at least would eventually say, well, I admit I got kind of hot too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And then you knew there was more to the story.
Yeah.
The rest of the story.
And that's the rest of the
Right.
story.
One serious comment, when I was on the board, I often thought that there was like a dead zone between customer service and sanitation. I know that you and I had conversations about that. Mr. Sorrell and I had conversations. I don't know, maybe Mr. Vanderver and I had conversations. I don't know how far it goes back. But there seemed to be a problem then of communication between customer service and sanitation. Some calls getting sort of lost somewhere. I'm delighted to hear that you now have a customer service specialist working at the sanitation department. I think that's what you said. I think that's a great step. And in all my years all my time on this committee, I hope I don't do this very often. This is one time I must say, I told you so. Because years ago, I suggested that maybe we should put some customer service people out there at sanitation, right there. And I'm glad to see you made that change. I hope it works out well.
Yes.
And I hope that there's no longer a big problem or maybe there never was, but I thought there was, between customer service and sanitation. Do you have any comment on that? I heard you comment earlier, and especially about putting the employee out there. I have anything further to add on that subject?
I will say, Dr. Walker, communication is the key to everything. When we have new employees, I always tell them the trinity of customer services: communicate, communicate, communicate. Ask, ask, ask. Take notes, take notes, take notes. And that's what has happened. Every quarter, the sanitation supervisory staff and the customer service supervisory staff, we meet together. We have lunch together. We talk about issues. How can we resolve this? How can we make this better? And it's been working. And we probably have met 3 quarters now.
Very good, very, very good. Mr. Woody?
Two comments. My concern for and my interest in supporting the request to have a customer service person there is my own observations were the communication was good between customer service and sanitation, but there was enough volume of it, and just in the heat of the day and passing things, information back and forth, a few would slip and not get completed and wouldn't get reported back. So I was concerned about closing that loop, having somebody that's there to chase the stragglers that didn't get reported, or maybe got printed out on a work ticket but fell off the chair between the seats and got missed one way or another. So closing the loop was important and providing that information. And that's vital for customer service as well. So they have that information should a follow-up call happen. They need to have something recorded in the record for what was completed on the other end. My only other comment was somewhere along the line, we mentioned the fact that we have a really low loss ratio on unpaid bills. Industry standard for utilities, public and private, the goal is to try to get it 4% or something below 4%. Before I got here, this organization was already pretty consistently below 2%. And it's held that. So this organization has a good track record for many years of working really well with its customer base, not by penalizing and adding interest, but just having frank conversations about the different ways we can, either they or with our help, can get current with our bills and have a really good track record for that.
Thank you. Again, well stated, well presented. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good evening, everyone.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, we're thin and out as we go. We're going to proceed on to our next presentation. Good evening. And that would be maintenance and construction.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
I'm Jerry Piscopo, Deputy Executive Director for Maintenance and Construction, and let's see here. Basically, maintenance and construction consists of all the maintenance divisions for pretty much process plants, maintenance of the collection system, operation of the collection system, and without SCADA. SCADA is done in the water department for monitoring purposes, but we maintain everything on the backside of it. We're comprised of 7 divisions, which are administration department, the facilities maintenance group, the generator maintenance group, instrument and electrical, lift stations, odor control, plant maintenance, and the regional services department. And Brian Reed will speak to them and all the different operations that they comprise. So when I get emails from the board and everybody, either me or Brian can get somebody to whatever crisis is going on. So rest assured that we're responding to you regardless of whether we respond to your email at that time. So we're pretty proactive about getting a response team out to the customer and getting something addressed as quickly as possible. We have, in regional services, there's 115 employees, and in the maintenance and construction departments that maintain the plants and generators and facilities and plant maintenance, as instrument electrical, is 76 personnel. We are, between regional services and maintenance and construction, we have 17 openings right now, so, and we just, it's very difficult to fill them. I have probably 4 positions in the maintenance construction department that between plant maintenance, a project engineer position that have been open for 4 or more years. And we just hired 1 mechanic, industrial plant mechanic, and he's godsend. He is worth every penny we're paying him, and we're probably paying him below market value. So we're lucky to get him, and he's contributing immediately. So that's the kind of work that we do, and it's really hard to get people. For example, they did the employee recruiting thing here at Ellison, and all the departments were up here, and people that we sent here, and we had set up for sewer, because we're sewer guys, nobody spoke to us. People came in and they were asking questions for the mechanic's job, and they're like, oh, wait a minute, I want to work in water. I don't want to get dirty. So that's exactly what we're competing against. So I don't know how to recruit anymore. It's as hard to get an industrial mechanic as it is to get a diesel truck mechanic. It's terrible.
Maybe you could get that Larry Downs guy to work for
There you go. That's right. We could. Yeah, he could work for Brian. Actually, I put him in Brian's department. Yeah. So this is our budget for the Maintenance and Construction Department. We're a $10 million department now for maintenance for the year, and the overall increase for the year is 9.7%. So this is the slides you guys have been waiting to see. This is where the tire hits the road. A lot of this is critical infrastructure that we're maintaining. And the biggest increases you'll see are in odor control. It's up 19%, which is all chemicals. Generator maintenance, that's fuel cost increase. The lift station, that's electric, 10%. And administration's gone up because we've consolidated some software licenses into the administration totals. That's why that's gone up. That's for some of the maintenance software we use, like Infor and all that. So the overall total, this doesn't include salaries or any of that. This is just operating monies for maintenance, and it's 9.7% increase year on year. So. The 2023 accomplishments, again, this is number one is one of my favorites. I'm proud of my lift station department. They really work hard, and being short 6 people, we're keeping it as close as we can. We've had one sanitary sewer overflow since 2021, and that happened at a manhole lift station at Joe Patty's downtown there, where there's one pump and a manhole, and we've been trying to eliminate that station. We had a pump failure, obviously. We've been trying to eliminate that station, but the lawsuit with the railroad prevented us from running a gravity up into another line. So hopefully this year we'll be able to get that at some point, get it eliminated and prevent that from becoming an issue again.
Mr. Chairman, yes. You said only one sanitary sewer overflow
At a lift station.
since at a lift station
Yes,
since
sir.
2021.
Mm-hmm.
For me, based in my background, that's sort of hard to comprehend that it could be so low.
Yes, sir. I remember when I took over lift stations, we probably had 12 a month.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. We've come a long way.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And I owe it to my people. They're the people that go out there and we do the mission and they do God's work. So, and I really appreciate the work they put into it.
So what do you contribute that turnaround to? I mean, is it training? Is it maintenance? Is it?
It's all those things. It's a combination of maintenance. It's a combination of certain key upgrades in the infrastructure, installing emergency standby power, better coordination within the department with supervisory. We established, we changed from everybody being 8 hours. So we have all the crews except for 2 during the day, and then there's 2 evening crews, which is when people come home. That's when you start getting your diurnal flows. They start coming up. So we have 2 crews that are on call in the evenings for anything that comes up during those hours, and then we have an emergency crew for during the night that responds. One of the other initiatives that we did, Mr. Sorrell did, was combine regional services with my department, and the synergy has really grown between myself or our department and regional services, where we work more as one now. Where gone by, it wasn't that way. There was, rigid walls and silos, if you will, between departments. So that's what I attribute a lot of that to, our ability to respond. We now have diesel pumps. We established like some of the things that you constantly see as routine business going to the board, our annual contracts for diesel pumps and those types of things have contributed greatly to our ability to manage the process and how the system responds.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I think that's a phenomenal improvement. I'm just sort of amazed. Perhaps being away from it for a while makes me appreciate even more some of the things I'm learning about today's operations. But to me, that's just that ought to be a story on page 1.
Whoa. Okay, let him finish just so that we can.
Okay.
But I would agree, Dr. Walker, that's tremendous. Especially it shows the improvement over time, and that's kind of what we like to see in all of our departments as it relates to coming before the board. We're looking to see improvement in areas over time.
Well, and that stems across the company. I mean, engineering is supporting us with upgrading the engineering standards. The new lift stations we're building, the last 50 years. And because of that, they're very resilient and we don't have the problems we used to have. And they're properly designed now. And there's no corner cutting. We have an inspection program before we take ownership of it, and there's a lot of work that goes into it. And as a matter of fact, Regional Services, I was applauding them a few weeks ago because we've had several weeks, even in their department now, where we haven't had a pipe failure. So, so it's just how you handle it, how you respond, and how you manage the system. And everybody's doing their part, and it's helping. It's making a big difference. We're not perfect, but we got a long way to go. But we're trying to get there.
Okay, thank you.
Matter of fact, one of the big projects was from the 2014 flood. If you recall, the CWRF was overwhelmed with 50+ million gallons a day for about 5 days. And one of the things we needed was a bypass pipe between the discharge of the clarifiers and the chlorine contact chamber to get the flow to our reject tanks without putting it back through the process. And FEMA contributed to that. We just completed that project this year, and Justin and I worked together to get the FEMA to reimburse us, and that was a nice check of $1.1 million. I asked them to put it back in my department funds, but it didn't work out that way. So, yeah. Okay, and then next in the building next door, that's another one we're working. That's their HVAC system. Their HVAC system is not working here. HVAC system with their geothermal is we got a capital project to upgrade that. All the equipment's been ordered and actually has come in, so we're about to bid the construction there. That's for Gabe's Group Engineering, getting their HVAC system back up to speed. We've added 3 generators this year. It seems like a low number, but they're on order and they're taking 50 weeks to come in, so or more. The generator for Target Lift Station, which is being installed this month, took 2 years. So, but that's a little bit of a bigger one. It's 500 kilowatt. So, but it took 2 years to come in. So I don't have an answer for the industrial supply chain yet, but it is problematic. So that's what's going on with the generator department. And then we are about to bid the Bayou Marcus Boardwalk as well. To do, to renovate that. The boardwalk's wearing, there's some issues out there, and that's going to be a big project. So we got phase 1 of that. We're going to try and do it in sections. So that's the plan for this year.
Okay.
Okay, on the work orders, this is for Mr. Williams. He can see how many work orders we're processing a year by department. It's pretty aggressive when you see what the lift station division's doing between 21-22 and fiscal year 23. It's a pretty busy year, depending on how much rain we get. Most of them in the lift station division, for example, they're going to be emergency or call-outs from SCADA. They're not preventative maintenance. In the other departments, you'll see more preventative maintenance style work orders, which I'll show you on the next slide. So our crews they're earning their keep, and a lot of guys are working on overtime because we are shorthanded. And this is the other slide, which shows you preventative maintenance for non-preventative maintenance. The most mature department with following our regimented maintenance program would be plant maintenance. So you can see that we're above 80% now in the preventative maintenance work orders versus failure maintenance, which is a huge improvement, which is really another thing that's gone into the dramatic improvements. Other departments like lift stations and odor control, unfortunately, it's the nature of the beast. You don't, you can't take a lot of those stations offline without doing diesel bypass pumps and things like that. So it's a little harder to get in there and inspect the pumps. So typically, they go until failure, and then we pull one out and put another one in. So that's how that's going. The other thing we track with our metrics on these is days to complete, how old a work order ages. You know, if you take your car to the shop, you don't want it sitting there for a month. You like to know it's going to happen within days or hours, right? So these, on the other hand, we have a little bit more leisure at times to get things done. So typically a work order, from the time it's given, the work's completed probably within a week or less, and the work order's closed out within 30 days. That includes man hours, any costs associated, credit card costs by the mechanic, purchase orders, all that stuff, and then the work order's closed out. And that's in our M4 maintenance system.
Okay, we have questions? Mr. Perkins?
Well, just a comment. Basically, I really like what I see on plant maintenance there. I mean, if you maintain anything, it's got to be the plants. Without the plants, we don't work. We're just down. You know, so that's smart. That's really important. I remember in the old days when we had an old Main Street plant that, you know, the green and the yellow would have been reversed here. Everything was an emergency down there.
Yes, sir.
It was just always chaos and things failing. There's just no way to keep up with it. It was antiquated, old, outdated. The best thing we ever did was build a new plant. Former Mayor Jerry Maygarden used to say that in the history of the United States, there's been 3 great real estate transactions. It'd say the Louisiana Purchase, when we got Alaska from the Russians, and when the city unloaded that Main Street sewage treatment plant on ECUA. And that was the truth. I mean, it was a disaster.
Right.
So it's nice to see. A lot of people weren't here during those days, but Dr. Walker remembers the chaos we had, and Lois remembers the never-ending problems at that plant. So I'm glad to see that we're staying on top of maintenance out there. And everything else, you know, most of the other stuff, like you say, is just the nature of the beast. I mean, you know,
Yeah, and you can see.
facilities maintenance, maybe we could bring up a little
Well, and
bit.
they're new to the
Yeah.
program. They got moved under me last year, so they're starting to drink the Kool-Aid, and we're trying to get things coordinated over there.
Preventive maintenance is worth every penny.
Absolutely, and you can see in generator maintenance, that's another one where you can get ahead of it, and we're working to get more, much more improvement there as well.
Okay, Ms. Benson, thank you.
And thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for your presentation. I want you to take some lessons from Gabe on this budget thing, but what are we going to do about the personnel? How can we solve this problem? Just throw money at it? Are there people out there who can?
Well, it's interesting you say that. So I was talking to 2 young gentlemen the other day that work at the MRF, because that'll be falling under the plant maintenance division. I'll leave that to Mr. Woody to explain at the next meeting. But we're starting to set up, taking over maintenance out at the MRF, and 2 of the employees out there, I was talking to them, they're close to my second son's age, 25, 26 years old, and I asked them, hey, don't you guys know anybody that's looking for a good job? And they said, no, I wouldn't recommend any of my friends.
Wow.
So I don't have an answer. I was just amazed. And these are good guys, nice, fine young men, and that's what they had to offer. And there's just a few folks out there. And as Kevin Stevens would say too, is unfortunately we can't negotiate the way private industry can. If they decide they want a guy in my department, they poached an I&E technician, the plant next door to us poached one of our best guys. He did programming, everything, and there was nothing I could do to compete. If I went to $35 an hour or 40, they'd go to 45. There was nothing I could do. And we lost one of our best guys, and that's what we're up against, because companies are competing for that same labor pool. That's the problem with the industrial mechanics. They're in the same worker pool as the chemical plants, the paper mills, offshore industry, because it's the same type of maintenance, and that's what we're up against, so.
Yeah, and to follow up with Mr. Woody, is there any way to empower departments, people like Mr. Piscopo, to actually be able to do incentives sort of on the fly to keep, because if we've trained somebody and they're good at what they do, there sure is a lot of value to that. But if his hands are tied, that's a problem. Is there some way to do that?
We can't always compete. That example is an extreme one, but we've had a couple situations where we have been able to keep somebody by doing a very quick turnaround desk audit. The challenges are twofold. Number one, work within the constraints of the pay grade system that we have, and trying to keep in mind internal equity issues. It's really the internal equity that it probably ties our hands more than any individual thing we have. We're a public entity, all our rates are public, and employees know it as well.
So and I know others want to, is there any way to outsource any of this? We outsource other maintenance issues and have people on call and that sort of thing.
There's certain things you could outsource, but some of it you really couldn't, just because of the nature of the plant and the process and people being on call with the truck. We've tried that with tankering services, and it just doesn't work out. They run into the same problems we do, where guys don't want to come to work. And that's the best lesson learned was our tankering. We had a contractor out of Mobile guaranteed 2 hours response time. And it was 4 hours, and then it was 6 hours, and we'll be there tomorrow, and so, and that's just not going to work. We have to send people when the phone rings.
And by the way, I don't know why I would suggest it to you, because I'm sure you've thought of that before.
Yes, ma'am. Yeah.
Anyway, thanks for all you do.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I see we have more questions. Mr. Brown, did you
I
have
have
a
a
question?
question, but here I am again. What about women engineers? Are there any institutions that specialize in women engineers? Because I hear you say the word guys, and I thought, okay, guys and gals.
Well, I would say women engineers, I brag on this intern I had a couple years ago from Mississippi State. She was a fantastic up-and-coming young mechanical engineer, and we couldn't afford to hire her because mechanical engineers make, they probably start in the 70s coming out of college.
Well,
So
maybe we need to look at
probably, yeah.
the pay raise. Or not pay raise,
I'll let
but
Stacy speak to what they pay the engineers. That's more his department.
I'd like to hear more guys and gals.
Yes, ma'am. Yeah, well, I'm all about it. Like I said, some of the female employees I have are probably my best performers. I'm a big advocate, so no, you won't have an issue there. So.
Okay. Mr. Brown?
You're generally very, very good at spreading the wealth about your accomplishments or your department's accomplishments. And I had two questions. One, I've been really admiring your safety. How is that going this year as opposed to last year and the year before?
Well, I think across the board, some of the things that we're working on to improve, which kind of gets forgotten when you're shorthanded, is driving. That's, because if you've driven around town, you got to be careful. Especially when you're driving a 550, people just, they forget they don't realize how big the vehicle is and how dangerous it could be to hit one of those. In our sanitation division, bless their hearts, they're always on the road and they're a target. But our safety's good. We've had very limited workplace injuries this year, and that's again because we start with all our work orders that come out of Infor. They're printed with a job safety analysis form, and the crews have to fill that out before they go to work. And they have gas meters, and we constantly keep up with the gas meters for the organization. So it's always at the forefront of what we do. We don't cut corners. I'm a big proponent of work smarter, not harder. And for the extreme cases, like when you have to get in the hole, That's just manual labor, and we do everything we can. We have fans, we ventilate, lights for nighttime, light stands. Matter of fact, this year we added two or three, Brian, light stands to our rental contract, yeah. So we have light stands, so we're not working in the dark with flashlights. So those are kind of the things, lessons learned that we do. Another thing we did was we implemented blue lights. We're trying to use for MOT at night, the sheriff's department, or after our FWC police officers, they come out for us and they set their blue lights up, and it helps tremendously with, traffic. And it's nice because the people who drive over to Cones, you got somebody there who goes and pulls them over. So it's very helpful. So those are the kind of things we've implemented in the last couple of years to help with employee safety, because we don't want to get anybody hurt because we can't fill a job. So not timely anyway. So, keeping everybody safe is at the forefront of what we're doing now.
And that's a good segue into the next one.
Yes, sir.
So how's morale? I mean,
Morale's good.
You've got these shortages. Folks are working really hard. It's obviously a dangerous position for some of these guys.
Yes.
With
And
those
ladies.
shortages and those pay, so
Yes.
everyone's doing good.
So everybody's doing well. I mean, I would consider morale to be high. I mean, the salary or the hourly fiscal changes that were done last year, the CDL incentive that Mr. Woody pushed, and then the 10% overall with the pay for cost of living, that's gone a long way. People are a lot happier, and so if they're happy, they're not looking. The other
Right.
thing we're doing is we're very accommodating with their work-life balance as best we can. Sometimes there isn't one. It's day on, stay on, because we got to get the job done. And the supervisors, we're out there with our men. They see us. We're not going to leave them alone on the job. So it's hard, but that's the tough part of morale. I would say my angry guys. I was telling Mr. Woody, one of my guys, his nickname's Angry, but he is the best employee because he does the best work, and it's more because he's intense. But yeah, sometimes we're running fast and furious, and there's some emotions and stuff, more frustrations because they're overworked. But we value them, and those are the guys that really, at the end of the day, do the best jobs. So, and ladies, so same thing. Yeah.
Well, it was a great presentation, and again, I appreciate every time I look at your stats in comparison to what they do and what we pay, or what some folks outside pay other folks, and how they still maintain. So congratulations, kudos.
Well, thank you, and I owe you a tour. You still haven't come out. I'd like to give you a tour sometime.
I'm better now, so I'll be coming out for my tour.
Okay, good.
Okay, we still have more questions. Ms. Ritz,
What is that
and then Mr. Woody.
comment? Have you, and I'm sure you probably have, but looked at military, not necessarily retirees, but sometimes they'll do 4 to 8 years and then come out. Have you looked at that grouping of officers?
Well, not so much officers. Typically, they're junior enlisted that leave the service. Yeah, we look at those. We have military preference. We've tried to recruit them, and we've gone to Whiting and tried to recruit in other places. We just
Success?
it's mixed. Yeah.
Okay, because that was another group I thought, since we're so heavy military in the area.
Well, right. But the problem is, like when they had the carrier here, we could recruit people because there's a lot more technical, which is what we need. And there's not a lot of that here now. It's mostly pilots, and me being a pilot, I don't bring a lot to the table. So,
Very different group, aren't they?
yes, ma'am.
Yeah. All right, thank you.
Okay, we have a question from Mr. Woody, a comment.
Two quick comments. You'll notice, preventive maintenance is the most cost-effective dollar to spend. A lot cheaper to do it upfront. And Jerry and his division put a high priority to do that. Excellent job. Thank you, Jerry. That's not just the routine odds and ends. You'll see, in fact, the current month right now, we've got several resolutions associated with equipment that they have prepared and staged ahead of time. They've identified mission-critical failure components pumps, gearboxes, motors, grinders, and things like that, and have, when it's practical, depending on the uniqueness of the equipment and the cost, but whenever it's practical, we'll have those in reserve so that when the emergency happens or the end of life is approaching, they can choose the time which, or have a quick response to get something back in service. And then we have the reserve time to then replace that backup piece of equipment that takes 50 weeks or whatever it takes to get something done. So I really value and appreciate that kind of planning as well. And then lastly, he briefly mentioned, they come to the rescue of lots of different departments. And I've asked Jerry, and he has stepped right up to take over the MRF maintenance positions. We have really struggled at the MRF doing an adequate and appropriate job. Plus, we have turnover, just the caliber of staff we've had there. So we're going to up our game, and the MRF maintenance will be taken over by Jerry's department.
Okay, thank you. So, Mr. Perkins has a question.
Yeah, it's
Comment.
just that, a couple of things. One is, outsourcing, I mean, for our primary systems is, I don't think, advisable. I mean, every mechanical system has its own idiosyncrasies and stuff, and somebody who knows our system is probably going to be a lot more capable on it than somebody that comes in blind and doesn't know it. I work as a boat captain, and every little boat has its different mechanical things going on. I mean, it might be one way in the manual, but that's, the map is not the terrain a lot of the time. So I don't think outsourcing is advisable. And intensity, of employees, I mean, I think within limits, that's a good thing. I mean, I as a boat captain, I have a dramatic personality change when I get on the boat and we go out, and so, it says, employees have a right not to be yelled at and cursed at and abused. Well, being a boat captain, that gets hard sometimes, but I have to try to follow that, but you have to have limits on intensity, but a lot of times the best producers are intense. But the main point that I wanted to try to make is that in our country, we have had a profound generational shift in the workforce and workforce skills in the area of skilled trades. I graduated in 1980, and when I graduated, there was an abundance, an overabundance of mechanics, welders, electricians, carpenters, HVAC people, pipe fitters, just all those skilled trades were a dime a dozen. They were everywhere. And educationally and workforce, the focus started to get on technology and service-related jobs, and those people, it's not that they're, they are still in more demand. They're just not out there. People just don't go to it. So the problem is, it's a supply and demand problem. They're not out there, and so it makes it, exponentially harder to get and retain those people. And the truth is, and we're going to have to make market adjustments like everybody else is. That those skilled trades jobs in the few coming years are going to be the high pay and prestigious jobs. They're going to be the lawyers and the doctors and the accountants that that have been the prestigious positions traditionally. So I think we're going to have to accept the fact that we're gradually going to have to increase those salaries unless something dramatic happens, just because it's supply and demand. And like Mr. Stevens was saying earlier, that the workforce, is declining, age is declining, just men and women, in the skilled trades. And I agree with Ms. Ritz 100%, we need to get them wherever we can. And regardless of gender, you do the job, you get hired and put to work and retained. But overall, it's just going to be a struggle that we're going to have to be aware of, and that we're going to have to make adjustments for policy-wise to enable them to perform the tasks that are needed. That's it.
Okay, thank you.
Just to follow up on him, and budget-wise, I think we're going to have to adjust that. And to follow on what Dale said, I think a lot of the prestige professions can be replaced by AI, and these mechanical people cannot. This is on your hands, this is working knowledge. I think you're right, we're going to see a shift in the population and what work is valued
Well,
and pay.
and to your point, during COVID, we were the only people at work every day. I mean, we can't not come in because the system will show itself very quickly. So we have to be here. And the folks that's when morale was low because everybody else was working from home and these guys had to come in every day. So that was probably one of my most difficult challenges since being at ECUA was keeping the crews motivated while during COVID to be at work. So,
Okay.
thank you.
No, not so
No.
fast.
Yes, sir.
Hurricane season's on the way.
Yes, sir.
How are we prepared?
We're ready. The matter of fact, I'm working to probably get, as I did last year, rent a set of generators as well, just to have them. Even though we didn't use them last year, we rented them from June through October. So that's in the works, but everything else, we have our emergency contractors in place. And we're working on the installation of 2 fuel tanks right now to expand our diesel capacity and unleaded capacity at 2 12,000-gallon tanks. They're being installed, and we're doing the big 500 kilowatt generator upgrade at Target Lift Station on Blue Angel.
Okay.
All right.
No further questions or comments. Thank you so very much for your presentation. We are moving right along. Now, we're going to do our last presentations for the day, and it will be done by none other than Regional Services. You have the floor.
Good evening. Thank you. I'm Brian Reed, Director of Regional Services. Let's see. So Regional Services, we maintain, install all of the water distribution system, all the water mains, and then everything connected to it. Water meters, water services that go from the main to the meter, fire hydrants, all the valves, and then in the wastewater collection system, we maintain all of the sewer mains, the gravity sewer, the force mains, the manholes, the sewer laterals which connect the customer to the sewer main, and air release valves and anything else that kind of touches the system. Anything that transmits water from the well to the customer, and then anything that goes back from the customer to the treatment plant. And that's what we do.
Okay.
We have 115 people in the department. We're divided into 3 service areas, 3 regions. We have a region south, west, and east. Roughly, it's west of 29 and east of 29 separates the west and east, and then east goes all the way to Pensacola Beach from Cantonment, and then west goes down as far as Fairfield Drive and Lillian Highway, and everything south of there is Region South, and then everything west of Palafox Street. We do that to keep the crews near to where they need to work, and it saves a lot of time spent in the vehicle going to the job. Then we have a sewer maintenance group, and they have the vacuum trucks and the camera trucks, and they do all of the cleaning of the sewer mains, maintenance of manholes, and video inspection of the sewer system. And then we have some specialty groups. We have a crew that does, sorry, I should have skipped ahead. We have a group that just maintains water valves, valves on force mains. They also maintain the air release valves, and what that is, if you get air buildup in a force main, it allows the air to be released from the pipe, and that keeps the pumps working properly, keeps things from getting bound up, and keeps everything working properly. We have a group that their responsibility is to maintain all of our fire hydrants. They do preventative maintenance on all the fire hydrants and flow test them, make sure everything's in good working order in case there's a fire. And, that's one of our most important jobs. They also do a flushing program to keep the water quality in the water system where it needs to be. We have some required flushing of dead ends by DEP, and they do all of that. They also do any problem areas or any calls that we get from customers. They'll go over and do flush a hydrant, flush at the customer's home, basically whatever needs to be done. We have the fats, oils, and grease division, and they go to the different restaurants throughout our system and make sure they're in compliance with all of our rules regarding prevention of putting fats, oils, and grease into the sewer system, which cause the obstructions in the pipe, and they'll cause sanitary sewer overflows. We have a group that does patching. Anytime we have to cut a road, we have to cut a driveway, if we have to make a large excavation in a customer's, in the right-of-way in front of a customer's home, and we have to replace grass, they do asphalt patches, they do concrete patches, they do grass. We also use a contractor for some of the larger jobs. Recently, we've started a meter maintenance division, and that's going to be a group that's focused on primarily our large meters. That would be anything 2-inch and above. Most of those are commercial customers. They're high consumption customers, so that's where a lot of our revenue comes from. And the purpose of that is to put the focus on that it deserves. They're going to do some other, they also maintain some of the smaller meters. We've got a project right now that Jerry and facilities maintenance are helping with to renovate the meter shop and the warehouse. And I think that's going to be a really nice facility when we get it done. And we've already purchased a kind of a state-of-the-art meter tester that you set the meters in place, you start the program, and it will run all the tests in accordance with the AWWA requirements, and takes much less time away from employees. They can kind of set it and go about doing something else. And it's tested on a regular basis, and it's a third party that comes in and tests it. So if there's ever any dispute with a customer, we've got a certified test bench that we tested their meter on, and it kind of gives them that level of comfort.
Okay.
The total proposed budget for 2024 is $14,265,613. I made a mistake on this one. The increase is actually $334,200. I'll go ahead and skip to the next slide because it's correct. So the increases, the professional services, that's some engineering work we were having done as part of a CIP project, and really there's no, it was something that is better classified as professional services in the operating budget, so that one's kind of a trade-off. We got an increase in overtime and standby. I think it's kind of been a theme tonight that, we've got we've struggled with hiring. We're actually at a good place right now, regional services. We've got 6 vacancies, but we're very young. Six vacancies over 115 positions is not bad at all. But a lot of these guys, I think Kim was saying earlier, they're a large percentage of our workforce has got less than 5 years of experience. So we've got, we got a lot of people that have been here less than a year, less than 2 years, and so they're just not real productive at this point, and they just need experience. And as they get that, they'll get their speed up. They'll be able to do a job that's taken them 2 hours now, they'll be able to do in an hour. So, I think that's going to improve. Temporary services, that's some money to hire some temporary employees during the summer, kind of help us keep up with the workload. Construction materials, I think the next slide I've got is going to show you how much the water and wastewater systems have grown over the last year, and that just means more things that we have to repair, and also prices have gone up on pretty much anything, all construction materials. So operating supplies and equipment, that's kind of the same. Miscellaneous, and then we've kind of reallocated a couple of places, and the board also approved a couple of capital purchases of some equipment last year, so that kind of comes out of this year, and the net is an increase of $334,200.
Okay.
So this is what I was talking about with the increases, the growth of the system from March 22 to April of 23. We got 13 more miles of water main, almost 400 valves, 1,700 plus water services. So that's going to be, each of those is going to be a new customer that's going to have a meter, that's going to have their own concerns. 73 more fire hydrants, almost 9 miles of gravity sewer main, almost 10 miles of force mains, another 1,600 plus sewer customers with the sewer laterals, 183 manholes, more valves, more ARVs, more check valves. So I guess the point is that the amount of system that we're trying to maintain is steadily growing, and we're just trying to keep up. This is our total work orders, although I don't think it's real accurate because it shows a decrease for the year, and our busiest part of the year is just coming up with the summer, with the heat. The water pressures are up, and we see more and more leaks. The next slide, I think it's the same thing with the repair of water services. That one's just my projection, but I don't think I think it'll end up being another increase this year.
What's going to be an increase this year?
The number of water services that we have to repair, because that doesn't really factor in the summer months, which we see a major increase in service repairs and water main repairs. So these are some of the targeted accomplishments. A lot of what we do is responsive maintenance. There's not a whole, you can't do much to preventative maintenance on a water main. Now you can on a valve. You can go out and exercise it, you can make sure the box is clean. That make sure you know where it is when you need it in the middle of the night. Make sure it's painted, make sure it's very easy to find. So we do preventative maintenance on valves. We're a little behind schedule on that. I'll talk about this in just a minute, but we've got a project that we've been working with a contractor on to replace, as they go through and exercise these valves and discover ones that don't function. We put those on a list and we put a project together to go through and replace all of those valves. And a lot of those are in the downtown area where, they're very old. We've found some from around 1900 and, they lasted for a long time, but when they don't work, you end up with a very large part of the system that's out of water and upset customers. And it's a big deal getting that project done. We have our routine flushes. That's different areas where we've had water quality problems, and we flush on a weekly, bi-weekly, monthly basis. We have our program to test and do preventative maintenance on all of our fire hydrants. Manhole inspections is another place where we can do preventative maintenance. That allows you to see if there's a problem starting in the system. And then, of course, our testing our large meters. So we're close on a lot of those. We're a little behind on some of the valve work because of the project that I was talking about. So we missed some of the preventative maintenance, but we're doing some replacements, and that's a big deal.
Absolutely.
So another place where we do preventative maintenance is sewer main cleaning. We have areas that we've had problems in the past or recently, and we go in and we do cleaning. After the cleaning, we do video inspection. We've got our target is to get 1 million feet of pipe cleaned and 250,000 feet of pipe video inspected. We're making good progress on the inspection. We were down a couple of vac trucks earlier in the year, and so we got a little behind on the cleaning, but we're catching up. Let's see. So one of the projects we try to do every year is to replace the water services. That's the tubing that goes from the water main to the customer's water meter. A lot of times we have leaks on those as they get older. This is a project where we go out and preventatively replace those service lines so that we don't have to go out and replace them on an emergency basis. So just about to complete that one. That's $1.4 million worth of replacements. This is the next one is the water valve replacement project. That's the project I referred to earlier. We've got a project at the Bayou Marcus water treatment facility to install a bypass line. That's going to start in June. One of the projects that y'all may be familiar with, we had 3 force main breaks and SSOs on Fort Pickens Road, and three breaks in 4 months. So with the approval of Mr. Woody and the board, we replaced that force main as an emergency project. It was an old pipe that was in poor condition, and we were able to replace it with a new HDPE pipe in 3 months, and it's online, and it's a big relief. And that was a bad situation. It was the only response in that situation was replacement. We're about to do something similar on Winding Lane, where we've had a couple of force main breaks near the intersection of Olive Road and Scenic Highway. Force main's in a really bad place. Again, we're going to do that one as a emergency project. We were able to get some competitive bids on that, and that one started construction last month. So really happy that we're getting that one moving forward. We also did a project at the Pensacola Beach Water Reclamation Facility to replace some lines that were in bad condition and to repair some manholes that needed to be repaired. And that project is complete, and it was successful. And I guess I got to get to the slide. So if anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to answer your questions.
Any questions? Okay, Dr. Walker.
Brian, you said your crews recently replaced valves that went dated back to 1900?
Yes, sir. Maybe even before that. It's got a patent number on it that says it's like.
I wasn't there then,
Yeah,
actually.
I know you're the board historian, so.
Well, I just wanted to tell Mr. Brown, as the young man in the crew, that I remember a time when one of your, or I guess it was regional service guys, came in with a hollowed-out log that had been part of a water line in downtown Pensacola. Yeah, they brought it down and showed it to us.
Yeah, I remember seeing that.
Were you?
Yes, sir.
Probably you were very young, 23-year-old or something, but that's some incredible stories come out in some of these reports. I also wanted to say that 1 million feet of sewer pipe cleaned in a year's time, that seems an unbelievable number. 1 million feet.
It is, and, well, we have, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Well, I just wanted to say to the 3 board members here that none of these good things could be done without the necessary money. Without the necessary money. And it's not up to staff to produce the money. It's up to the board and with some recommendation sometimes from this committee. The committee members even should be vigilant about asking whether we are spending enough money, raising and spending enough money. But there's a heavy burden on the board members. You know, always the biggest conundrum in government is how do you get money out of the people you're serving without upsetting the people who are paying that money, which of course are the same people. But that's the challenge that has to be faced every year in order to keep it going like this and going well.
Thank you, Dr. Walker. We have Ms. Benson.
First of all, there's nothing really sexy about what you do, you know, the preventive maintenance and doing all of these things. But we have to just look at what's happening at the airport right now to know how important it is. I mean, we're going to not have any planes landing for 2 consecutive evenings in the city of Pensacola because some maintenance wasn't done and they didn't have emergency services. So, you know, we don't necessarily appreciate you because we don't have these disasters, but trust me, we know that it's important what you're doing. The other thing I wanted to mention when you talked about all of these new meters and new services, Rick Harper was saying that with the pandemic, what happened was all of these major cities like New York, Chicago, San Francisco is diminishing population, the workforces are leaving, and the growth is in mid-sized cities. Pensacola is one of those that it's experiencing this huge growth. We now are outpacing Mobile, and you know, I don't know how we keep up with the projected growth in this community, and it's going to be a continued challenge for you and for Mr. Piscopo's department to meet these needs. But you're doing a great job because we don't see these disasters that we could be having, so thank you.
Well, thank you, and it may not be sexy, but it's very important to me and to the community, and I think it's very satisfying.
Okay, very well. Mr. Brown?
To piggyback on what Ms. Benson was saying, I mean, this year Pensacola moved up from 44 to number 28 in the best places to live in the United States. That's saying a lot. And then if you look at the military projections that we've had for the last 2 years in comparison to what's coming up in the next 3 years, it's just going to be a lot of folks moving here. And those are things that we can see aside from Navy Federal. I think they all own, everything out there in Beulah now belongs to Navy Federal. And there are 4 new complexes, apartment complexes, that have 400 to 500 apartments plus, all to be opened in the next 2 years. So we know that what you're doing is really important, and they're just tacking on to your job. So with respect to that, and the number of personnel that you have you guys looked forward to project what you might need futuristically?
Yes, sir. I don't have anything to present to you, but it's certainly something that we're looking at as far as when we add this number of or this footage of pipe, or we add this number of fire hydrants, or this number of manholes, or do we start? We're going to need to add some additional crews and probably an additional region at some point to accommodate that. Yeah. Yeah, Beulah's just out of control. Yes, sir. Thank you.
I was anticipating your objectives being full of measurables, and I see you got rid of that.
The objectives?
Yes.
Yeah, I guess I approach the objectives as more the general things, and then the targeted accomplishments as the things that were more measurable.
And I see where you did highlight those things that were accomplished. Nevertheless, I was looking forward to it. And again, like everyone else's echo, you guys are doing the good work out there. I know whenever I have a question that needs to be answered, you all are as quick as can be to get on it. So I do appreciate that. And perhaps with the growth comes those resources that are necessary to keep you growing. So hopefully that's what growth here in Pensacola will represent for employees and staff and resources for ECUA. So
That's the good side. I saw 1,700 and something new water services, and that's 1,700 monthly payments extra that are coming in. So the growth does help with
Yes.
as far as the finances go.
So, thank you. Good
Yep.
report.
Yes, sir.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
One more
One-
that I have
one
to
closing
keep looking
comment.
from left to right
It's
in
not a
order to
question,
see
though.
them. Okay, Mr. Woody.
Whenever we talk about our I&I program and our consent decree with the FDEP, we often think about it in terms of the capital side, what engineering is spending out in the field for reducing inflow and infiltration by providing additional capacity, white spots in the road by building tanks, and those sorts of things. That's the early on component of our I&I response. The intermediate and long-term response, however, is asset management, capacity maintenance operations and management, CMOM, those kinds of activities that show that we're flushing and cleaning and videotaping a certain amount of footage on an annual basis, on a regular basis, and make sure that we're maintaining and managing our system. In fact, part of next year's budget hasn't been touched on. We're investing a little more in GIS to help track and provide the tools for those specific aspects of the I&I program, because long-term, that is going to be so important, and the ability to track our infrastructure that we maintain and our preventive maintenance activities and be able to report on that and use that as a management tool to prioritize our expenses is going to be very important. You just saw two budgets from two departments to do really all the maintenance out in the field, preventive maintenance and otherwise. Two at 14 million and 10 million, that's about $24 million. To maintain assets whose value is in excess of $1 billion, that's 2.4%. 2.4%.
That's a perspective. Okay,
That's all I have.
okay. Thank you again.
Yes, sir.
Good job, appreciate
Thank
it. Continue. Well, I don't want to disappoint. We've done people's business, and there is okay. Is there any unfinished business? Not today. Okay. And there is no more new business. Okay. Are there any committee communications? And I have no pink slips, so there's no open, no one who wants to speak at open forum. Then I do declare we are adjourned.